I think it's interesting too is you see certifications like LEED or the Living Building Challenge coming out as well that are changing the targets as well. I think of the Living Building Challenge because of the water requirements are very strict, and
yes,
and that changes the discussion as well, and certainly influences product discussions.
It does, and if you can get all that established and identified as sustainable goals in programming, then everyone along the design and construction process can refer back to that document and say, what are we trying to do here? What are our what are our sustainable goals and priorities? And then run all the decisions through that filter. And that's how you get to the finish line with a more successful project.
I think having something like that too is essential because everyone who's involved in the project from A to Z have that as a reference when there could be a subcontractor coming in or something's not swapped out accidentally along the way.
Right.
And that comes into play as well. So
right, there has to be an enforcer, like you say, all the way through. Someone that is the keeper of the goals. Because otherwise people go into business as usual. And if the firm isn't firmly established in a sustainability philosophy and mandate and commitment internally, and it's only what this client wants, everyone, when we get busy and so on, and demands of time, we all go back to our common denominator, the old way we did things.
Right.
So until this is best practices for everyone, someone has to be the keeper of sustainability goals.
And so if you're that keeper, even just evaluating all the products, there are so many tools out there. How do you stay on top of everything that is out there and available to use? How do you manage the selection process with all the tools that are available?
Well, that's a good question. Everyone has a different door that they come in, and you can, in a word, what you really want to look for in a certification is the highest level of independent verification for testing and validation with the most attributes, product attributes.
Okay.
That's really what we're shooting for.
Okay.
So if you can do that, that's probably the simplest answer. The longer answer is just be aware that first-party certification is self-declared, typically by manufacturers themselves. It could even be their own internal program. Right. Second-party certifications will have an interested party who is verifying and certifying, which is one step up, but not all the way there. Still should be taken
with a grain of salt.
Exactly. And third-party certification is independent, following standards that have been vetted in the industry, and that is going to be far and away the highest certification level.
Okay. And I think one of the interesting things too, and we were talking about this earlier, is that there's kind of, I find comfort in knowing that a lot of people are confused by this because there is so much dialogue, and it's something that everyone is working on, and manufacturers can be working with architects and vice versa to try and figure it all out because it is such an evolving area.
Right, right. Yeah. I think some of the tried and true, or some of the most reliable certifications and standards that an architectural firm can make an in-house reference tool to go to. The larger firms obviously have. You know, you've got your Perkins and Will and your HOKs, and they've really developed complete systems. But for smaller firms, you're going to have to come up with something. Yep. So you can look to the existing green building rating systems like LEED, if you're wondering where's my starting point, and say, well, what standards and certifications are they using? You can the free online resources, the LEED rating system, and you can look there and see what they have used as their standard. And the LEED reference guide, you can go even deeper. It has the resources, websites, and more details in that regard. You can look at certifications like UL Environmental and their whole suite of products like Green Guard and EcoLogo, and then others that are considered more reputable would be FSC and WaterSense, Energy Star, Floor Score. We have a lot of them that have been around and that are a good starting point. We like to use GreenSpec, which is published by Building Green.
Yep.
And because they are like the consumer reports of green building, and they have been for a long time.
Yep.
Very reputable. And with every new publication of GreenSpec directory, products get dropped out that met the bar the previous version. There are new standards.
And I think that's an interesting thing too, is that to recognize that it's not a black or white decision. It's not a yes, no a lot of times, that it's very complex and there's a lot of variables that come into play for each product, each material type as it evolves, and each project as those, say your indoor air quality is very important to us. So the dynamics changed a lot there. So there's definitely a lot at stake here, but it's a very interesting time to be involved with it and gives you a lot to think about as you're walking around the show floor. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to touching base with you after the show to see what you think of everything you've seen today.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.